Have you ever felt like running away from your problems? Like life's pressures are closing in, and the easiest option is just to escape? In Psalm 11, David faced a moment like this. But instead of fleeing, he chose to stand firm and trust in God's protection. Let's dive in and discover the strength to stand, even when the world says, "Run!" Psalm 11 is a powerful psalm of faith in the face of fear. It's a prayer that speaks to those moments when we feel surrounded by enemies, criticized by others, or overwhelmed by life's challenges. In these moments, the temptation to retreat is strong. But David reminds us that God is still on his throne, even when the foundations of our lives seem shaken. David's response here sets the tone for this psalm: unwavering trust, even when everything else feels uncertain. In the opening verse, David's friends advise him to run. They warn him that danger is near, and they paint a picture of enemies hiding in the shadows, ready to shoot arrows. This is exactly how fear speaks to us. It exaggerates the threat and whispers, "Run away." Have you ever faced a situation where all you wanted to do was escape? Maybe it was a tough conversation, a failed relationship, or a moment of shame. The urge to run is real, but David's response is a lesson in courage. David boldly declares, "In the Lord I take refuge." His trust isn't in his own ability to fight or flee, but in God's protection. This is a powerful declaration of faith over fear. It's not that David denies the danger. He simply trusts that God's protection is greater than any threat. When you face difficult situations, say to yourself, "In the Lord, I take refuge." Let it be your battle cry against the fears that try to paralyze you. When fear rises, pause and pray, "Lord, you are my refuge." In verses 4-5, David shifts the focus from earthly threats to God's heavenly perspective. The Lord is in his holy temple. The Lord is on his heavenly throne. This reminds us that while life may feel chaotic, God is still in control. He is not distant or disengaged, but actively watching over his people. Imagine a storm raging around you, but above the clouds the sun is still shining. God's perspective is like that, higher than the storm and unchanged by the chaos below. Ask him to give you his perspective today. David says, "The Lord examines the righteous." This examination is not to punish, but to refine. When we go through tests, God is shaping us, building character, and preparing us for greater things. Don't resent the tests you're facing. Embrace them as opportunities to grow. God's testing is like a refiner's fire, burning away impurities and strengthening what's good. Think of one challenge you're facing right now. How can you see it as God's refining process rather than just an obstacle? The psalm ends with a hopeful promise. The Lord is righteous. He loves justice. Upright men will see his face. God's justice will prevail, and his love for righteousness is unwavering. Even when injustice seems to win temporarily, God's justice is never denied. You may not see it immediately, but God's timing is perfect, and his justice will be evident in due season. Psalm 11 is a psalm of standing firm. It's a reminder that God is our refuge, that he sees from a higher perspective, and that his justice will ultimately prevail. So, when fear tries to drive you away, remember to stand in faith. Say it with me. In the Lord, I take refuge. Ititht. Let this be your declaration this week. No matter what comes your way, will you choose to stand firm in faith today? Will you declare, "In the Lord, I take refuge," even when the enemy tries to make you run? Remember, God is still on his throne, and he's got your back.